What's up, guys? I'm Fern, creator and executive producer of the LRG Survifern. We are part of music festival and reality TV show. We combine the two for a live, interactive Survivor experience for the audience to watch and for the players to play. And today we're going a little inside the behind the scenes. We want to give some information to people that maybe are potentially creating your first game. So if you're out there trying to make your own game, this is for you. And we're going to start with today's topic, formulating your day of timeline for your LRG. Okay, so the first thing to start with is, are you playing a 1-day game, 2-day game, a week?
One eternity later.
Really, it just depends on how much time you have. If this is your first LRG that you're creating, it's probably a 1 to 2 day game. Maybe it's anywhere between 10 and 16 contestants, but that's the start of the math equation. How many hours do you have? How many players do you have? After that, you have to figure out basically how long do you want each challenge to go. Are your challenges 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes?
525,600 minutes.
Whatever timeline you think it is, test your challenge to figure out what it actually is, and then add an extra 5 minutes on top of that. And then same goes to your tribal council or your whatever your vote out ceremony is called. Anything that is formulaic, like challenges, confessionals, tribal councils, you really need to figure out what your average time needed and put 5 to 10 extra buffer minutes throughout that section. That's basically one loop. Confessionals, challenge, confessionals, tribal. You have 4 things. And inside of those confessionals is your camp lifetime as well. If those 4 things on average take you 30 minutes each, 20 minutes each, well, there's your 2-hour loop. There's your 90-minute loop. And then from there, you can see what you can and cannot do. There's also pacing. Maybe you want to give players a lot of time to strategize at some points. Other times, maybe you want it to be quick and jarring. You don't want your players just to settle in, start predicting what your game is. So once you figure out your main loop, you should build into your schedule ways that you break from your own formula. It keeps your players on their toes. It keeps them from not getting bored. And it also allows them to live in this constant state of what's going to happen next, which you need to keep the game going forward. So I personally, when I'm crafting these schedules, always consider the first vote out and try to pad more time in the beginning. Really comes down to player experience for me. And you have to know that you have 15 people showing up for you to compete in your game. You want all 15 of them to at least have a memory and an experience that they can hold on to.
What'd you do?
I merely sampled your memories, and from them, I made this.
So you don't want your first person getting voted out within the first 5% of your game. Maybe you let that first vote out take a little bit longer. The second one also maybe. And then once you're in the flow of things, I like to ramp it up. So now you kind of start pushing it and then figuring out where you want your game to end. If it's a 1-day game, then you do gotta power through after that and get to a point where you're finishing before you lose light. What time is sunset? Is sunset's 9 o'clock, 9 p.m., you're filming in the summer? Great, you have more daylight to work with. If sunset's at 7 p.m., you can still work with that, but what type of lighting equipment do you have to bring in?
Somewhere between a nice summer's day and the full concentrated power of the sun.
Everything is logistics when you're working on building your game. So now let's say you're doing a 2 or a 3-day game. At what point do players go to sleep? At what point do you wake them up? All of these decisions aren't mine, but they're yours because you have to decide, how do you want them to feel? Do you want them rested? If you let them go to sleep at 10 p.m. and wake up at 7 a.m., they might be able to get some good sleep. If you end the game at midnight and start it at 6 a.m., you and your production crew might hate you. Figure out where you want those stops to be. And then also just figure out what type of cast you want to have. If you have a bigger cast and you only have so much amount of time, well then that's a different player experience. Let's call it 20 players in a 50-hour game are going to have a different experience than a 15-player cast in a 50-hour game. And that's the current situation that I'm going through. I'm building my 4th game right now and I'm doing an all-star season. So that means I want to allow as many of the past contestants to compete that's possible. So if I can get a lot of contestants, great, I have 20 past contestants coming to play. but now I only have the same amount of time. How do you push forward in that game without ruining player experience and also creating an environment that doesn't kill your production team and you're going to sleep at 1 a.m., which we've done in the past. So figure out your structure. Confessionals, challenges, confessionals, tribal council. If that is normally 2 hours, you're in a 2-hour loop. Build in your breaks. Build in an extra 10 to 15 minute buffer, because everything is mental, even from the production side. If your production crew thinks they're 10 minutes ahead of schedule, they will produce differently than if they think they're 10 minutes behind schedule. If they think they're an hour and a half behind schedule, they'll probably panic and they'll probably start to cut corners. And then the middle of your game will feel sloppier. So really try to do your best to figure out the time you need for everything. Add in extra time and use that psychological battle of making your production feel like they're ahead of schedule, while also making sure you're taking care of the player experience. It's a lot of things to figure out. It's part of the puzzle. But the nice thing is, once the game goes farther along, you have less things to take care of. If you start with 16 players, by the middle of the game, you have 8 players. It's easier to handle 8 players than it is to handle 16 players. So you should consider that when scheduling out the beginning of your game. You know that's going to be harder on your production crew. It's going to be longer on your cast. So make sure you schedule enough time to take care of that, and then ramp it up while the game goes on. Maybe find a nice point to hit the brakes a tiny bit by like the final 5 or final 6 to really let those last contestants breathe for a second and then push on through. And if you're behind schedule, then you're gonna have to find ways to make your challenges a little quicker. You're gonna have to find ways to cut through tribal, less questions. And I think the last thing I want to end with is really understand where you are at in the day. If you're in the middle of the day and it's 5 p.m. and you still have 4 rounds to go through, that means you messed up on your scheduling. Take notes for next year.
Write that down, write that down!
And then when you get to final tribal, really make sure that process doesn't go too long, because if you start final tribal at 7 p.m., okay, not the worst. You have time to spend an hour or two there. But if you're starting your final tribal at 10 p.m. and your team has worked for an entire day straight, or 2 days straight, or 3 days straight, you're probably gassed everyone, and you might not get the best performance and the best quality from it. So do the best you can to pace it, have fun, enjoy it, and if you have any questions, throw them underneath in the comments here. If this video is helpful for you, you can like and subscribe. We have season 2 of Survifern coming out. We have season 4 being filmed this year. You can come to our filming. We do have an audience. You can see how we handle these logistics in real time. And if there's any questions that you want to talk to us about further, maybe that's the next video we make. We're happy to produce whatever content you guys need. I've been Fern. Thank you for watching. Thank you to Asbury Park Vibes. We are currently in Asbury Park Vibes in New Jersey. If you need a podcast space, they're the space for you. And good luck on your first game, guys. Hope it goes well.